Hi class, welcome back. This video is a continuation of the theory for level design, goals, structures and feedback. In this video we'll be focusing primarily on level structure. So how we structure a level has an impact upon the per level goals, the scenarios and the events in a level. Simply put, consider how and why particular goals, scenarios or events are encountered by the player. The structure we devise defines this. There are three archetypal level structures that we'll be discussing in this video. These are linear, modulated, and open. On screen now is an example of a linear level structure, where goal 1 is set, you're provided with a scenario. In scenario A, there are two events that take place, in which gameplay actions are available. After you've completed these, goal 1 has been met, and goal 2 is set. You then enter into scenario B, where two events are available to the player, and then from there you progress into scenario C, and then into another event, and then upon completion of those, goal 2 has been met. So linear level design follows a straight and defined path. The advantages of linear level design are that you have a high degree of authorial control for the designer, they're easier to establish consistency and continuity, you can craft a more compelling story. The disadvantage of linear level design is that you're constraining the player and limiting their agency. So with linear levels, you have to strive for a well-paced level. Iteration and testing in linear levels is essential. Do not allow the player to become bored. So to do so, you can avoid long and dull sections of play, and you should bear in mind the target player. Some players will find certain events boring, whereas others will find the same events fun. Do not give the player time to question the path that they're on. So here's an example of a modulated level structure. As you can see, goal 1 is set at the top and is met at the very end. Goal 1, after it has been set, breaks into two scenarios, scenario A and scenario B. If the player chooses scenario B, it's a very linear traditional path that goes from scenario B, event B1, goal 3 being set, scenario D, two events, goal 3 being met, scenario E, event E1, and then eventually goal 1 being met and completed. If we take scenario A, it then branches into two events for the player to choose from, event AA1 and event AB1. These then converge again at goal 2 being set, scenario C, event C1, goal 2 being met, and then it funnels back into scenario E, E1, and goal 1 finally being met. So, modulated level structure is a compromise between linear and open level design. It uses path selection but converges again at bottlenecks. The advantages of modulated level design are that it's the best of both worlds. It provides some freedom for the player but retains authorial control for the designer. The disadvantage is that it's also the worst of both worlds. Offering the freedom for the player can create frustration when they are restricted elsewhere in the level. So consistency in implementation is essential. Carefully design where and why the player will have the freedom to choose. You're providing them with an illusion of choice. There may only be 2 to 3 choices at a turning point. Don't make it explicit to the player that a limited number of choices are actually available. Provide changes in direction that aren't based purely on conscious decision. For instance, the level of success within a gameplay event determines the direction that they take. Here you can see an example of an open level structure. You've got 3 goals in which a scenario or scenarios, events, and the goal is met. They're their own self-contained goals. There's an array of scenarios with linked events. There's an array of events. And there's also gameplay actions, which is just a list of actions that the player can impact on the world interaction and emergent play. The players have much more freedom to define their own path in an open level structure. And a completely open, no path structure could be used in a sandbox level. So the advantages of open level design are that the players have freedom to define their experience. And players generate their own content, for instance in MMOs or online creation games such as Minecraft or Roblox. The disadvantage of an open level structure is that they're difficult to test, as there's lots of permutations that can appear, and it's difficult to encapsulate in one defined narrative. As such, they provide more of a narrative context rather than a defined plot. You design gameplay events that are open and self-contained. There's no prerequisites to enter, and also quest lines that can be pursued or avoided, and this has no impact on the experience. It's all up to player choice. The open level structure provides players with tools to create their own content, an ability to customize the world, their characters, create missions for other players, etc. I'm now going to show you a few examples of hybrid structures. So this level design begins with one starting point and starts quite linear, but it also has one branch off for optional content, should the player wish to engage with it. It then branches out into three scenarios or events, and this is the beginning of our open gameplay structure. So you've got this open gameplay segment, which then funnels back into a linear single end. This structure has a linear beginning, but branches at a main point of conflict to allow for either a fully linear experience or a fully linear experience which ends at ending 2, or the top path, which shows a more open approach to gameplay, offering choices. So you've got a semi-open path at the top, which allows you to go to ending 1, or depending on your actions within that open area segment, you can also end at ending 2. And this final hybrid structure is a hub structure. So the game can't progress to the next goal until the sub-scenarios have been completed. You've got the one beginning, you've got your next scenario in which 4 events take place. Once they've been completed, you can then progress into the next scenario in which 4 events can take place. And then you progress from there into the next scenario where there are multiple endings. So I'm going to mention a little bit about design methods briefly. So you should use design methods to communicate the structure of your level. Common methods include flow diagrams, event diagrams, and annotated maps. Please include iterations of this design work in your final coursework submission. It is extremely important that you do so. In part 3, we will be talking about the role of the participant in level design. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.